Hi, my name is Dr. Robin Abraham. I'm a pediatrician. I am also have a website called yuvabharat.org. So my basic point of making this video is to highlight what that website is about. So here goes my presentation, and this is about yuvabharat.org, which is a website wherein I'm trying to highlight certain issues that are close to my heart. There are four major crises that the world is facing today, which is probably well known to everyone. First is that there is huge high number of rich people and even greater number of poor people in this world, and the gap between them is widening, and that is we are making a very unequal world. At the same time, we have prolificated overconsumption. So first problem is overconsumption. Second problem due to overconsumption is depletion of resources like petroleum, coal, minerals, fisheries, etc. Then our population is going much beyond its carrying capacity. Our earth is just stressed because of overpopulation and overconsumption. The environment is being degraded by loss of diversity and pollution. So we have about 80% of the humanity which lives on less than $10 a day. 80% of the population is living in countries where the income differentials are widening. 40% of the poorest people only have 5% of the global income. 20% have 75% of the global income. So all these are well-known statistics, just repeating. So according to UNICEF, 22,000 children are dying every day due to poverty, etc., etc. So we have the issue of the second big issue that the world is facing is depletion of fossil fuels. The global oil production is going to decline by 2016, and the world runs on what is called a high energy return on energy invested oil, high EROEI oil. That is, if I invest a unit of energy, I get about 40 to 50 units of energy out in form of petroleum. But if I do the same with solar, with nuclear, we get probably 1:2 or 1:3 or probably even 1:1.4. So the net energy of solar, wind is very less. That is, you need to expend a lot of energy to make solar panels. So it's very ironic that we have to use oil to make solar panels, and so when oil depletes, the solar panels we will have a difficulty producing these solar panels. So in a way, renewable energies are today dependent on petroleum directly or indirectly. If you come to bioenergy, it takes a lot of sunlight, lot of acres of land to generate the amount of oil that we need to run the world as we have, and that takes a lot of labor to produce the biodiesel that we actually need. So we are in a big soup when it comes to energy. So since we have addicted ourselves to oil, which is going to start declining, we are not running out of oil, it is just going to decline. The oil production is just going to decline from 2016. There's a huge misconception in the media that peak oil means oil is running out. Absolutely not. There is 50% of oil still remaining, but the oil production is going to deplete. Now here is this very important chart by ASPO, which shows that if you look at the 1940s and 50s, US was the major producer of oil. That's why the Pearl Harbor attack happened at that time, because the Americans refused to sell oil to Japanese, and the Japanese attacked. So that is because Americans at that time were the leaders in oil production. Something happened in the 1970s, the oil production peaked, the US oil production started to decline, and after that the Americans militarily started getting involved in the Middle East. So the Middle East was getting the dominant oil player by that time. Something happened in 1990, those times when the Russian oil production started to decline. In 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. So the Soviet Union collapsed, the military involvement of the Americans in the Middle East, all of this is related to oil. So now we have the problem of the global oil peak, which should happen within a few years' time. So this is going to be a world-changing event because we have actually addicted ourselves to oil. Now, if you want to have more information on peak oil, of course you can Google peak oil, or you can go to websites like resilience.org or diof.org, one of my favorite websites on peak oil. population, the problem of overpopulation. The world population growth, if you look at through history, is that it has been stable. 7000 BC, 5000 BC, 2000 BC, there is hardly any increase in the human population. But something happens after the advent of fossil fuel. There is like a huge jump in population which is never ever witnessed in human history. This sort of a jump is possible because of petroleum, of coal, because of fossil fuels. Now, overpopulation is a concept which is related to carrying capacity. Suppose you have a carrying capacity, for example, Sahara Desert. In the middle of Sahara Desert, it cannot even support one person. So even a one person in the middle of Sahara Desert is overpopulation. As a person cannot be sustained in that environment, that person will die. But 1,000 people in a fertile valley may be just fine. So the point here is that carrying capacity is limited of Earth, and the carrying capacity of the Earth increased after the advent of fossil fuels like coal and petroleum. Now we have a diminishing decline of petroleum and coal. So we have huge problem coming ahead. So the fourth mega crisis that is happening is loss of biodiversity. We are fucking the planet, very simple. And there is almost 30% of plant and animal species which have been lost. Dinosaur extinction happened 65 million years ago, and we are middle of something of a similar extinction now, which is faster than the dinosaur extinction event. So we can understand the crisis that the world is in. Okay, so the question is, why am I doing this? I mean, I don't have any delusions that I am the messiah or the savior of the world, nor do I think I have any special responsibilities. I mean, I'm not. It's just that I also don't believe in the power of one. I mean, it's not like I alone can do anything about it. So these are huge problems, and I'm not even sure that these problems will ever be solved. So it's quite possible that overpopulation will keep going on, overconsumption will keep going on, depletion of the earth material will happen in a catastrophic way. There may be a huge loss of biodiversity which will be continuing unabated. All of these may keep happening for the years to come. Probably we may never be able to reverse it. All of these are possible, I agree. Then why do I do this? Because I do this because I believe that's the right thing to do. I believe that there is a solution to all these problems, even though we may not reach those solutions. It's quite possible, but it's always the right thing to do is to try to do something. That's all I'm doing in this website and making this video also. So okay, so the question is, how did we get here? How did we get into this wanton over-consumerism, this whole overpopulation, this depletion of precious resources, loss of biodiversity? How did we get here? So there are a lot of people with a lot of explanations. Like some of them say it's capitalism, some of them say it's multinational companies, consumerism, big government, corrupt politicians, socialism. All of these are listed as causes. I mean, I agree that there are a lot of merits to the arguments put forward to look at these as some of the causes of the problems that we have. But I believe, my thesis, the Yuva Bharat thesis, is that human apathy is the reason for why we are here. That is, none of us want to see, most of us don't want to see the big picture. Most of us are having goals which are not related to sustainability. That is, we don't care. Simple. No great explanations. That's the problem that humanity faces. And it's very interesting that this was understood and was mentioned by the great philosopher Plato. And he said that the public, because they are never interested in deeper issues and they are not the best custodians of democracy. So Plato said democracy is not a good system. So Plato wanted philosophers to rule the world, because philosophers are people with wisdom, with depth, who can guide society into the correct path. So what's interesting about Plato's thesis is that this was recognized about thousands of years ago, and nothing has changed even now. Even in spite of the best technologies, human apathy is still there, just the way Plato observed. But I don't agree totally with Plato, because he's right about human apathy. Okay, agreed, got about that. But he's wrong about philosophers taking power, because there is no objective way of identifying a philosopher. How do you know you're a philosopher or not? And there are no guarantees that a philosopher will rule will be free of tyranny and free of corruption, free of problems. So this whole thing of having a dictatorship of philosophers is a non-starter. It's not going to work. But so what I am proposing is that an antidote to human apathy is part-time volunteerism. That is, philosophers should not take power but talk truth to power. Democracy is probably the best system that humans have made, in spite of what Plato thinks, and volunteers are the ones who have to become the philosophers. So volunteers are the philosophers. And what is the philosophy behind part-time volunteerism? What is the approach? The approach is that it should be, okay, you have a week, 7 days in a week, give half a day or once a day per week for social issues. And the time that you give for sustainability, for the environment, for justice, that time you should be doing activity which is low cost, because part-time volunteers don't have much money with them. So it should be a low cost activity, and it should have a reasonable high positive impact on society. So this website deals with what are the activities that we can do, so I will be making videos in the future on what are low cost activities we can do in our community. I mean, some of the ideas I want to share, and I am obviously open to more and more ideas, so that will come in my subsequent videos. So now what is the idea behind volunteerism? The point here is that people may believe what you say. I mean, if you say you give a big lecture, people may believe you, they may not believe you. But if you do something, they will always believe you. So when volunteers become doers, as philosophers become volunteers and they become doers, then they win the confidence of more people. So it's a way of inspiring others to become volunteers. And Yuva Bharat calls for, basically is the call for action. So the idea is to make an online hub for training part-time volunteers, so we can use our spare time to share more information on health, agriculture, governance. We can show videos of the ideas that are being implemented, because we want to create an online community of volunteers. So I've already made a group in Facebook called Innovative Action Group. So these are all the efforts that I as an individual am doing. So what is the connection between volunteerism and philosophy? I mean, a volunteer will always face questions like, why do you do this? What do you hope to achieve? What is your vision of what a society should be? All of these are basically philosophical questions. So an understanding of philosophy is key to understanding volunteerism. So you cannot separate the two. Now, how we see one of the connections is that we have an inner call for action. I mean, we want to do something. So there is an inner call, and most of these calls are people are motivated by some spiritual reasons. So these are all of this touches upon philosophy, and some people get obsessed to the point that they leave everything and go and become full-time volunteers. All of this happens. We are all witnessing that. So now, one of the philosophical points that I want to make in my website Yuva Bharat is that the Indian philosophers like Buddha, Guru Nanak, Mahavira, Srinarayana Guru, and all the other philosophers have stressed on the importance of making a just and compassionate individual. That's it. So individualism has been the major thrust in the Indian philosophers. So basically, otherworldliness got dominated in India, and social and political philosophy got ignored, because of which we have one of the worst social systems in the form of caste system, and we have developed, it's because culturally we have ignored society. The Western philosophers, in the contrast, they had obsessed about society, not the individual, like Plato, Socrates, the French Revolution philosophers, Karl Marx, all of them emphasized on social justice. So the point that I'm trying to make is, why do we have to understand these philosophical systems as independent of each other? Why can't we sort of like integrate the two? I mean, I'll try to give an example. India worships its rivers. Okay, now this is the state of Indian rivers. Okay, contrast this with the Europeans. They don't worship their rivers, but their rivers are the cleanest. Now, why did we get here? How did we get here? I mean, it's because we are very religious. We pray and we consider our rivers holy, but they are not even fit for irrigation. Forget drinking; they're so polluted. They're not even fit for irrigation. That's because we Indians never ask our governments to clean our river up. We don't expect that. We never give interest or emphasis on political and social systems. So this thing gets really, this contrast is so visible when you look at the Indian rivers and compare it with the European rivers. So what we want to do is we want to take inspiration from the Western philosophers who emphasized on governance, who emphasized on ideal government, social justice, and how to make a social system which is just and compassionate. Now, Indian philosophers want individuals who are just and compassionate. Why can't we integrate the two? So, what we are trying to do is, at a philosophical level, trying to integrate Western philosophical thought and Indian philosophical thought, and also to develop low-cost volunteerism that can be of help to everyone. So, this is basically the idea with which I am going, and I hope you like the concept behind Yuva Bharat, and I am looking forward to your feedback, and please do put comments and visit my website yuvabharat.org, and thank you very much for listening to me.